Hi YouTube, Neil here with Facelift Interiors. Welcome back to our channel. So before we start on this week's video, we are just about to hit 10,000 subscribers this week. We just want to say a massive thank you to each and every one of you that have subscribed, watched our videos, hit the like button and just give us a comment, and we really appreciate you and thank you very much. So in this week's video, we're going to be showing you how to do a pattern match on a horizontal stripe. So this is a requested video, so we are doing this at the behest of yourselves. So this one is a horizontal stripe, meaning the stripe goes across and not down. There's going to be lots of tips and tricks throughout the video, and I'm going to explain to you how I go about it and the way I plan it and how I execute. So as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you'll see when all of our new videos are available, and don't forget to drop us a like and a comment if you like the video. So also don't forget to follow us over on Instagram. We've got all our finished work up there. We do the before and afters, we do little stories throughout the week, so don't forget to follow us over there. So let's get on with this video. So this is how you do a horizontal stripe pattern match on a armchair or sofa. Action! As you can see here, partners, this is a Parker Knoll chair. Sorry, that is just wobbling all over the place. So we're going to recover this chair, and this video is going to be all about pattern matching. On the fabric that we're using, there's a stripe, but it goes across, not vertical, it's horizontal. So this is a very good quality frame, it's a Parker Knoll. So I'm just going to take these off. I'm going to strip this down. You take all the old fabric off, see what the frame's like. If the springs need any attention, they probably will need tightening, they feel a bit soft. And then what I'll do first is so the arms will be covered first. When we cut our fabric, we'll make sure we cut them all the same, because there's 6 arms here. There's 2 chairs and a sofa. So we'll cut all our arms the same. So I'll upholster the 2 arms, and I will make sure I cut them the same so the stripe is in exactly the same place. So what I want is the stripe to follow around here, across here, and then down the front. So again, I want the stripe to follow all the way around, and then also I want it to go across here and around. I essentially want the stripe to follow all the way around the chair. So it will go across the front border on the cushion. It'll all line up. This part and this part will all match. The stripe will go round the outsides, and it'll follow all the way around. I will use this old inside back as a template. So what I'll do is I'll upholster the 2 arms, then I'll put this old inside back on just to see where it lines up, and I can just mark. Say there's a red stripe there, I can just mark there and put red stripe. Then I'll cut my inside backs. Once the inside backs are on, we can upholster our seat. So obviously once this panel's on here, we'll see how we want to cut this seat from here. Want it to match this arm, and then the front border as well. Then from there we can see how we're going to cut our faces and upholster our faces, and then from there we can see how we're going to cut our outside arms. So once you get to that point here, once this is on, you can see how you're going to cut your outside arms. So we're going to do all 3 the same. Like I said, there's 2 chairs and a sofa, so yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a bitch. So I'm going to start stripping this down, and I'll show you how we go about pattern matching. Right, so what I've done is I've already cut 1 arm. I've marked top there. So as there is 6 arms, we can effectively cut them all the same. And always remember, if you're cutting with a stripe and you're doing a stripe job, always make your allowance. So if you work it out to be, I don't know, 20 meters, make sure you allow, you know, an extra however many times that pattern repeat. See, this pattern repeats very small, so we're quite lucky. So what I've done here is I've cut 1, and the good thing with a stripe and a pattern, you can follow the pattern. I've already started cutting up this line, so I can follow that line up, or I can lay the other one on top and copy it that way. So I just made a little cut where I know I've got to follow. Now I can follow the line. So get rid of that one, just follow that line straight up because you're following a pattern. And that's your 2 arms cut. So I'm just going to cut them for now, as we don't know how we want to cut our inside back yet. And once we've cut our inside back for the chair, once we've sort of sussed that out, we do the same on the sofa and the other chair. So I'm going to take these arms and start upholstering. Right guys, so what I've done is I've laid the fabric on. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just temporarily, because I'm cutting all the arms the same, I want to make sure, let's bring you round, that they go on exactly the same. So I want just enough fabric to go underneath here. So what I'm doing is I've pulled that under. I'm just going to tack that off underneath there. Now we're going to do the same back here. I'm just going to pull this fabric back and put another staple in there. I'm just just pushing down here. Now we're going to do 2 down here, then we're going to do front to back. So just going to cut down here into this rail. I'm just going to go 1 there, 1 there. So there's a rail down here. So I'm just going to cut up to that rail. I'm just going to cut around it. So I'm going up to the wood. And that can all go under there, and all that can go through here. So now we've pushed all our fabric down under here, as you can see. Pulling down nice and tight, well, pulling up, shall we say. So I'm pulling all that slack out. So now we're at the back. So now we're at this back rail, and there is a bit of wood back here. So I'm going to cut up to that. So now we need to straighten up this arm. So I'm following the line, using my hand to roll over here. Keep these lines straight. So the way you do this one, you do the same on all the others, because you need the lines to match exactly. So hopefully you can see down that line as well as I can, but that is straight. So I'm just going to put a staple in there. So I'm just cutting up into here. Pull it down nice and tight. I'm just going to put 1 in there. So we just sped this bit up. It's not really about the pattern matching, it's just me doing pleats. But we have previously done a video on pleats, so if you want to see a detailed video on how to do pleats, we will leave it in the link above. So here I'm just making the final cut at the back. Now I'm going to start doing the pleats on the back of the arm. You just want to make sure you do them exactly the same on the other side. You want them to match perfectly. And that is the arm. Now both our arms are on. So that was one story, trying to get the arms on. So now what we're doing is we're going to do our inside back. So what we've done is we've stuck the old fabric back on, and we've made sure that our arms are exactly the same, because obviously it's a stripe, so it's important that it follows. So I am going to mark on this back, I'm going to mark the blue stripe, blue. So there, I've marked that blue stripe, so I'll just put a B there. So now I can go and cut that, make sure that blue stripe follows that line. I can probably cut 2 of them because there's 2 chairs. Then we'll get that sewn up because it's got a collar on it as well. So you can see here that you've got a collar that follows around there, that goes around the shape. So we'll cut that in as well and sew that on. So let's do it. So now I'm just cutting around my template, and I've put a nip in the middle. I'm cutting around my collar. I'm making the little marks, the little nips where I marked the blue line earlier on the template. Now I've nip in the center again, and I'm going to fold that over so I've got a perfectly even template, and I've cut around the other side. Alright. So here I am measuring the length my collar needs to be. So that's me cutting my collar, or 2. Now I'm going to sew them on. This is me sewing on my collar. So I'm just sewing my collar around the curve of the inside back, and what their collar is for is to help you get around curves so it doesn't pucker up, because if you didn't cut the collars, you'd have loads of ripples on the front. We do this to help you get around the curves, and it also helps you tack off around the back, staples onto your frame. We will be doing a more in-depth video on collars, so keep an eye out for that in the future. Right, so that's our back sort of semi on. What is most important is that these lines line up, these stripes, which they look pretty good so far. So I'm going to start by making some cuts. So I can tuckle that through. I'm going to cut some of this fly away. So we'll do the same over this side as well. So I'm just going to pull this lot down, this side. You can see there that them lines line up pretty good. So I'm just going to put a staple in the back here to hold that in place, because I don't want that pulling down. Right guys, so I'm just going to show you what I'm doing around the back. So I'm pulling my inside back through and just stapling it off, because I know I don't have to pull it too tight, because there is going to be a back cushion there. But as you can see, hopefully, because there's a stripe in this fabric, we want to follow it so it's the same all the way along. So just pulling, not too tight. So what I'm doing now is I'm looking at my lines and seeing where we need to straighten up. So here, definitely. Just rolling the excess over the top. Again, following my lines. I'm going to show you around the back what's going on. So, as you can see, following this line, it's a stripe, so use it to your advantage. See that green line? It's going to stay in that position the whole way along. I pulled a bit too tight there, so I can see, yep, bit too tight, bit too tight. Well, so what I've done here, guys, is put the old cover on. I've pulled it down a little bit tighter, and I've marked there the red line. I've done the same over this side. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take this apart. This is our seat panel. So we've got our marks here. So we're going to cut that. These are the side panels for the seats. Right, now we're going to cut our seat panel. Nip halfway, like we did on the other bits. Nip halfway. So it's perfectly symmetrical. Now, fold that over. Right, so now that's the seats cut. I need to cut some linings. Right guys, we're on the seats. This panel is going to sew. That sews like that, so it only stops there, so it's going to sew like that onto that join, then up to there. Then the lining goes all the way across. So I'm just going to stitch this on here now. And as we come round curves, we sort of turn in this fabric, a couple of stitches. You can turn it a bit more, use your foot to manipulate fabric. And the same on the other side. So now we're going to run our lining all the way across. So we put a nip in the middle. And what we're also going to do is put on a webbing. Right, so that's the lining on. Now we're going to put a web on. So the web I'm going to stitch only from about there. This is to be able to lash our seats on. So I'm not going to go all the way across the collar. Right, so now we can go and put this seat on. So I'm not going to put any Dacron over this because I don't want it to slide. So just going with the new seat on, making sure my selvage is all the way down, like that. Making sure my selvage is down this side. And then push my fabric down. Right, and that fly, not the fly, the web, I'm just going to show you here where it is. So once we push it under, you'll see it. There it is. So now we're just going to push all of the rest of our fabric through. So now all of our fabrics are through. So what I'm doing here, just folding the fabric on itself. I'm going to tuck the fabric behind the foam. We get a nice clean finish there. Staple it off down there. Might tidy that up a bit that side. Likewise what we did over here, you can see the foam is up. So I'm just going to tuck the fabric behind the foam. Pull that down, nice finish. So I'm just pulling this down. Keeping it nice and straight on the top. Alright guys, so I'm just going to put this arm on now. So just got to make sure it's all lined up. I need to cut that off as well. One, two, three. So this is me putting the outside arm on. So when you're cutting your outside arm, you look to the front on the face, see where your facing finishes towards where your inside arm finishes as well. And I'd say add on about 1 inch. And then as you're putting it on, like I'm doing now, you need to check, like I'm doing here, just making sure it all lines up properly, and just be really careful to make sure it all lines up. We have previously done videos on how to do a detailed outside arm. We will leave it in the link above. This morning we are doing our outside back. So I've laid the chair down like this. So I'm just going to mark halfway across there, so that is 14.5. All right there. So now what I'm going to do is attach our piping. I measured this, so there should definitely be enough. So what I'm going to do, just take that piping, put a nip in halfway. I know where my centre is, so that can go there. Away we go, and there is a ridge that I'm following around here, so it's a nice thing to follow. Just going to cut away all of this excess. You don't want it to be too thick in the corners. There's a ridge down here as well that I'm dipping into, that obviously the person that manufactured it, which is Parker Knoll. So I'm just going to pull that down tight into the ridge. Right, just while we're here at the bottom, I'm going to snip that. Just going to cut this piping cord out. Nice and flat. We'll do the same on this side. So what we need to do now is set our inside back off. So obviously we want these stripes to line up at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is just lay this on. I might even just put a couple of temporaries in, like so. So that's how I want my outside back to finish. What I'm going to do now, guys, now I've set it on and it's where I need it to be, so I can feel that my piping is there. So I need to cut 1/2 inch away from that point. So what you can do is you could run chalk and just mark the line, and then I can follow the line. You see that side, are they the same? Pretty much. To get this to pattern match, I've done that, I've set it on. It's not going to match at the top because the top curves, but see, that's where we want it to be. So we want to come 1/2 inch away from here, so I'm going to go on that green line. So that's that. So now we can take our temporaries out. We don't want to ruin the fabric. You have to be very careful getting them out. So I'm going to nip in the middle of my outside back. So now I've got the centre, and line it up. And we've allowed 1/2 inch, so you only want to staple down 1/2 inch. Pull tight both ways. So what I'm going to do is just pull that down, and that looks good over here. That lines up pretty well, and over this side likewise. But this, it's not over yet. We still have to be very careful. So what I'm going to do now is put my back tack along the top, metal gripper down the sides, my lining, and then my Dacron, and then we can start putting this outside back in place. Right, so now I'm just going to pull down there and put a staple in the bottom in the middle. Not too tight. I'll cross and do the same. And this way, what I'm doing here is I'm lining the fabric up where it needs to be without putting it in the metal gripper. So now, I'm just going to start tucking our fabric into our gripper, and I like to use my fingers. Some people like to use regulators, some people push the gripper down even further and they use regulators. I will use my regulator though to mark the fabric. So the key to pattern matching on a stripe like this, just patience, be careful, don't rush. Right, so I'm just going to pull that out now. I'll follow that line. Right, so